She stole my wedding. Mid-toast under the tent, with champagne in everyone's hands and my dress still spotless, my mother grabbed the mic and announced her own engagement, to my dad's ex-best friend, in front of both families. I didn't cry. I took the mic back and ended something much bigger. The champagne sparkled like liquid gold in the late afternoon sun, and for a moment, the world looked exactly as it should. Laughter rolled softly under the ivory tent, white roses hung in airy bundles from the rafters, and the string quartet played something elegant and forgettable. I stood near the head table in my wedding dress, satin, minimal, not too white, holding my bouquet like it might anchor me to the earth. Then I saw my mother step up to the mic. "Can I have everyone's attention for just a moment?" Her voice slid into the air like a crack in porcelain. Smooth at first, but you could already hear the fracture if you were listening close. My heart stalled. She was radiant in a blush gown that matched the flowers. Her choice, not mine. Lipstick perfect. Hair swept into a dramatic chignon. Always the center of the room, even when she wasn't supposed to be. I watched her from behind my bouquet, her smile too wide, her eyes darting, toward Dad, toward my new husband's family, toward the cameras. "I just want to say," she began, placing a hand over her heart in that theatrical way she always did when emotions were on cue. "This day has been magical for all of us." My stomach twisted. Then she gestured to the man standing beside her. It was Robert. Robert, with the movie producer smile and deep tan and white cuffs peeking out from a tailored navy jacket. My father's former best friend, her old flame, and now apparently something else. "We're engaged," she chirped, voice breaking with fake joy as she held up her left hand. The diamond caught the light like a weapon. Everything stopped. Music, clinking glasses, my breath. The room tilted. And then it hit. A low ripple of gasps. Confused applause. Cameras pivoting. People turned toward her, away from me. My father stared, pale. His hand on the wine glass tightened until the stem cracked. I stepped back. Not far. Just enough. This wasn't a mistake. It was premeditated, calculated, just like when I was 6. And she showed up to my piano recital in a floor-length sequined gown and insisted on helping me on stage. Just like when I was 12 and she read my diary out loud during Thanksgiving, laughing at how sensitive I was, asking why I never wrote about her. Just like when I was 16 and confessed I liked girls, and she announced it at brunch like it was her own revelation. She needed to own the room. Every room. Even this one. Especially this one. I could hear her voice from 1,000 childhood moments echoing in my skull. "I didn't mean to upset you. I just wanted a little happiness too. Why is it always about you, Ava?" And always, she was the victim. When she flirted with my prom date. When she cried at my graduation because I didn't thank her in my speech. When I got engaged and she said, "Must be nice to have a fairy tale." This wasn't about joy. It was revenge. For my father's new girlfriend. For the fact that the day wasn't hers. For being 54 and fearing the silence. My fiancé, my husband now, looked at me, frozen. My father had gone entirely still. Then I saw the photographer pivot, lens aimed at her ring, not my bouquet. That's when something inside me finally snapped. Not with fire, but with clarity. I walked toward the stage, past the guests, past the hushed whispers, past my stunned father. My bouquet felt suddenly heavy, a symbol of everything I'd tried to carry for her. I reached the microphone just as she leaned in to speak again. I took it from her hands. Her smile faltered. I looked her dead in the eye, not trembling, not crying, just done. "Enough," I said. Silence, then murmurs. But I wasn't listening anymore. I turned, looked out at everyone, then back to her. "You made your choice," I said, voice low but solid. "Now I'm making mine." I handed her the bouquet. She stared at it like it was something foreign. "I'm done living in your shadow." I stepped off the stage and didn't look back. Not even when she called my name. Not even when the music started again. Not even when the sky, for the first time that day, darkened slightly at the edges. The moment I stepped down from that stage, I felt it. The shift. Not just in the room, but inside me. Like something had unlatched after years of rusted resistance. My dress dragged across the wood floor, heavy now, like it carried every childhood moment where I'd swallowed my words just to keep the peace. Behind me, I heard her call my name. "Ava! Ava! Wait!" Still sweet. Still pretending she didn't just hijack the most important day of my life. I didn't stop. I didn't run either. I walked slow, deliberate, through clusters of frozen guests and champagne glasses tilted mid-toast. My husband, Jake, caught up with me near the bar. He didn't speak. Just looked at me like he was afraid the wrong word would tip me into pieces. "I'm fine," I said, though I didn't believe it yet. "I just need air." The venue had a wraparound veranda overlooking the trees. Everything out there was glowing and soft, like the world didn't know what just happened. But I knew. I leaned against the railing, fingers tight on the wood, my bouquet still clutched in one hand. I couldn't bring myself to set it down. Behind my ribs, 100 old wounds flared to life. Flashbacks came in fast cuts, like a film reel someone forgot to turn off. My 6th birthday. I cried because none of the other kids wanted the carrot cake she insisted on making. "Why are you so ungrateful?" she snapped, as the candles sputtered. Age 10. I won the school writing contest. She told everyone at dinner it was because she used to journal and I must have inherited it. Age 14. I begged her to come to my debate final. She showed up halfway through wearing a red pantsuit and sunglasses, telling the front row, "Don't mind me, just the star's mother." Every moment I wanted to be seen. She found a way to be brighter. Jake stood behind me now, unsure. Do you want me to ask her to leave? The question was a rope, a way back into pretending this was salvageable. No, I said. Let her stay. Let everyone see who she is. Inside, someone restarted the music. The illusion resumed. But a few people still glanced toward the veranda, waiting to see what I'd do. I watched my mother through the tent wall, laughing again, her hand still curled around Robert's arm. She looked 20 years younger in that moment. The room had accepted her story. Of course they had. She was so good at this. I thought about my father, how he once told me after one of their screaming matches, "Your mother has two talents, making scenes and making people feel like it's their fault. And me? My talent was absorbing the blast so no one else had to. Until now." A server came by with a tray. I took a glass. Not champagne. Water. My throat felt like it had been sanded raw. Jake touched my back lightly. "You don't have to go back in if you don't want to." But I did. I had to. Not for the party. Not for the guests. For me. I turned and faced the tent again, eyes narrowing. No more shrinking. I walked back into the spotlight she thought she'd claimed, bouquet still in hand, and saw her watching me now, uneasy. She wasn't sure what I'd do next. Good, because neither was I. When I was little, I used to pretend my mom was famous. Not because she actually was. We lived in a modest house in Pennsylvania, and she worked part-time at a dentist's office, but because she acted like she was always on stage. Every movement exaggerated, every sigh a performance. I'd sit on the stairs and watch her apply lipstick in the hallway mirror like she was being filmed, lips slightly parted, head tilted, waiting for the applause that never came. And somehow, I made that my fault. So even now, standing in front of my wedding guests, watching her rehearse her next act from across the room, that old instinct clawed up inside me. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she didn't mean to ruin the day. No, not this time. She walked toward me, Robert trailing behind her like a man who'd been pulled into something far above his pay grade. "Sweetheart," she began, voice soft, hands held out like a peace offering. "I didn't think you'd be upset. It just happened so naturally. Love surprises us sometimes, doesn't it?" I wanted to laugh. Instead, I tilted my head. "You brought a ring to my wedding, Mom. You didn't even like Robert when I was a kid." Her smile twitched. "People grow. We reconnected a few months ago. I didn't plan this, I swear." Robert blinked. I looked at him and asked, "Did you know she'd announced this today?" He hesitated, then nodded, slowly. Of course he did. Dad was still across the room, seated now, arms folded. I caught his eye for a brief second. He looked like someone watching a house burn down and realizing he left the windows open. "I just didn't want to steal your thunder," she said. "I thought maybe it could be a shared celebration. You know, a new chapter for both of us." That's when something broke clean in my chest. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice level, "this wasn't about celebrating love. This was about control. You couldn't stand that the day wasn't about you." She blinked fast. "That's not fair. You have no idea how hard it's been watching your father move on while I—" "No," I cut in. "I do know, because I watched you turn every moment of my life into a scene about your pain, even when I was the one hurting." The music faded again. Someone must have noticed the tension. Jake appeared beside me, steady. I glanced at him, then back at her. "I want you to leave." Her face cracked. "You can't mean that." "I do." She looked at the guests, gauging their expressions, calculating sympathy. "But what will people say?" I leaned in, low enough that only she could hear. "They'll say you made a choice." And for once, so did I. Then louder I turned to the guests. "We're taking a short break. Please enjoy the food and drinks while we reset." Jake led me to the back garden while a low buzz of conversation started again. Behind us, I heard her say to Robert, "She'll regret this. She always does." But for the first time in my life, I didn't believe her, because something was finally beginning to feel like mine. Later, they told me she left without saying goodbye. No dramatic exit, no flurry of accusations. Just a quiet retreat into the night, hand in hand with Robert like they were starring in some romantic epilogue no one asked for. But I knew better. She didn't storm out because she was embarrassed. She left because the audience stopped clapping. Jake and I stayed behind the garden archway for a while. Surrounded by fairy lights and silence, my heels kicked off in the grass. I felt hollow. Not sad, not yet. Just scraped clean, like I'd finally carved her out of my ribcage. "I'm sorry," Jake said gently, rubbing my back. I should have seen it coming. I shook my head. She's always been like this. I just kept hoping she'd stop, but she never did. I remembered a time when I was 13 and had begged her to come to my science fair. I'd spent weeks building this elaborate volcano model, just to prove I could do something big. When the award was announced, I turned to the crowd, expecting to see her smile. She wasn't there. She'd forgotten. Later, when I confronted her, she cried in the kitchen. Said she'd been too emotionally drained that week because Dad had canceled their dinner. Somehow it became about him, then about me. "You don't appreciate how hard it is being alone," she'd said. "Everything I do without thanks," and I apologized to her. That night came rushing back like a punch to the chest. Back in the tent, guests had begun to recover. Dancing, drinking, clinking glasses again. The photographer found me near the trellis and asked if we wanted to resume portraits. I nodded, but my smile was stiff. We took some pictures. The light was soft. My eyes red, but not from tears, from clarity. By the end of the night, I was sitting at the edge of the empty dance floor, bouquet beside me, dress slightly wrinkled, watching Jake talk to his cousins. My father approached, slow, like someone stepping into a room they used to live in. "She really did it," he said, sliding into the seat beside me. "She always does." He exhaled. "I'm sorry." I didn't know about the engagement. I believe you. We sat in silence for a minute, the kind of silence only people who survived the same storm can share. She called me last week, he said eventually. Said she hoped the wedding would mature you, that maybe seeing her happy again would help you let go of all that old resentment. I laughed once, bitter. She thinks boundaries are resentment. He nodded slowly. You were always the one who saw through it. She hated that. Then he pulled something from his jacket, an envelope. This was for you. I wasn't sure when to give it. Inside was a card. To my Ava. Shine bright today, just like your mama once did. Tucked inside, a check. $500. Of course. A reminder that even her generosity came with a spotlight and a subtext. I handed it back. I'm good, I said. I don't need her kind of help anymore. He looked proud. Tired, but proud. As the tent lights dimmed and the last of the guests filtered out, I stood there in my wrinkled dress, watching the sky shift from blush to black. And for the first time in years, I felt something real. Freedom. The next morning, the headlines were unofficial but loud. Texts from friends, cousins tagging me in blurry Instagram photos. OMG, what happened? Did your mom seriously? Are you okay? Someone had posted a video of the moment, her announcement, my face, me taking the mic. By noon, it had nearly 3,000 views. Jake tried to hide it from me, but I watched it. Twice. The camera shakes a little. Probably someone's aunt filming on her phone, but the sound is clear. You can hear her voice. Cheerful, chirpy, hollow. Then you see me walk forward, bouquet trembling in my fist, and the moment I say enough, the air changes. It's all there, captured forever. And somehow I'm glad. Let them see. Let them watch what it looks like when a daughter stops folding herself to fit inside someone else's story. But by Monday, the fallout began. My mother didn't call. Instead, she posted a filtered selfie of her and Robert at a winery. The caption read, "Here's to new beginnings and true love, even if not everyone can be happy for you." I stared at the screen for a long time. No names, no direct blame, just enough to make people wonder who the villain was. Then came the messages, from family, my aunt. Couldn't you have handled that privately? A second cousin I haven't seen in years. Maybe she just wanted to feel included. And the worst, my mom's sister. You humiliated her in front of everyone. She was just trying to share her joy, as if I hadn't spent 30 years making room for hers. Jake told me to ignore them. People will believe whatever fits their comfort zone. But I couldn't ignore the one that came from my mother's number that night. Just a single line. You've always had a cruel streak. I see that now. No hello, no apology, just that. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my journal, the one I hadn't touched in months, and wrote her name at the top of a blank page. Then I listed everything I'd never said. I wrote about the day she slammed my door so hard the hinges cracked because I didn't want to wear the dress she picked for picture day. I wrote about how she told my college boyfriend that I wasn't built for long-term love. I wrote about how every time I cried, she rolled her eyes and called me dramatic. By the time I stopped writing, it was past 1 a.m., and I felt lighter, because for once, I wasn't cleaning up her mess. I was naming it. And tomorrow, I would send her a final message. You made your choice. Now here's mine. I'm not part of your audience anymore. 3 days later, she showed up at my apartment. No call, no text, just the knock. Soft but fast, like she was in a hurry to be forgiven before I could say no. Jake was at work. I stood in the doorway, barefoot, wearing the same hoodie I'd cried into the night before. My stomach dropped the second I saw her. She was holding a pink bakery box. I brought lemon bars, she said, like we were still playing mother and daughter, like none of this happened. Your favorite. She used to say that about every dessert she liked. I didn't invite her in. You can leave them on the mat, I said. Her smile didn't falter. Ava, don't be childish. We need to talk. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Talk, I said. She blinked, clearly thrown by my flatness. Look, I know things got out of hand. Maybe the timing wasn't perfect, but Robert and I— Stop, I interrupted. This isn't about Robert. She shifted her weight, arms folding tight. Then what is it about? I stared at her. This woman who raised me to flinch every time she sighed too loudly. This woman who taught me that love was something earned through silence and sacrifice. It's about me, I said. It's about the fact that you can't stand when I shine. That even on my wedding day, you needed to hijack the spotlight because you were afraid no one was looking at you. She gasped. That's not fair. No, I said. What's not fair is growing up afraid of making you upset. What's not fair is spending my whole life thinking I was too much or not enough, depending on your mood. What's not fair is you blaming everyone for your loneliness when you're the one who sets fire to every bridge. Her jaw clenched. I'm your mother. I know, I said. That's the hardest part. We stood there in silence. For once, I didn't feel it for her. She softened, just slightly. I was trying to feel like I mattered again. I didn't think it would hurt you like that. That's the problem. You never think about anyone's feelings but your own. I made mistakes, she said. But I'm still your mother. I'm not saying you're not, I replied. I'm saying I'm done letting that be a free pass. Her face fell, real this time. Not performance, not dramatics. But I didn't flinch. You can't cut me out, she said, voice cracking. I'm not cutting you out, I said. I'm stepping out of your shadow. She didn't say another word. Just set the box down on the mat and walked away. I left it there until it rained. Then I threw it out, soggy lemon bars and all, and felt cleaner than I had in years. The silence after she left wasn't peaceful. Not at first. It was the kind that hums in your chest. The kind that makes you double-check your locks. The kind that feels like it's waiting for the other shoe to drop. I kept expecting the next act. A letter, a voicemail, a carefully worded Facebook post laced with guilt and glittering accusations. Instead, she disappeared. No calls, no posts, no updates. Which should have felt like relief, but it felt like waiting for a bomb that might never go off. I kept replaying the wedding in my head. Not the ceremony, not Jake's vows, which were perfect, simple, and so steady they made my hands stop shaking. But that moment when I looked out at all the people watching my mother instead of me. That flicker of shame I felt like I'd somehow ruined her moment, and how fast that shame turned to clarity. In therapy, which I started a week after the wedding, I called it the switch. Like a lever in my chest finally snapped the other way. She weaponized love, I told my therapist. She made affection conditional. If I didn't play along, I was cold. If I cried, I was unstable. If I wanted space, I was ungrateful. My therapist nodded, unfazed. And when you stood up for yourself, she called me cruel. Classic. We talked for an hour about parentification, emotional neglect, and the specific pain of growing up with a narcissist who cloaks herself in victimhood. She always made it seem like she was the one being hurt, I said, even when she was the one doing the hurting. That's the trick, she said. If they cry loud enough, no one notices you're bleeding. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, remembering the time I got a concussion falling off my bike at 12. She didn't take me to the ER, said I was being dramatic and ruining the day. I slept off a mild brain injury on the couch while she hosted her book club. The next day she brought me ice cream and told me not to make it a big thing. I never told anyone, not until now. The next morning Jake brought me coffee in bed. He didn't ask questions, just placed it on the nightstand and kissed my forehead. That quiet kind of love, the kind that doesn't demand a spotlight. It was still new to me. I've been thinking, I said, about boundaries. He smirked. You? Boundaries? I smiled back, but it didn't reach my chest. I think I need to tell my aunt, the one who messaged me after the wedding. I need her to understand why I'm not speaking to my mom. You don't owe anyone that. I know, I said, but I think I need to say it. So I drafted a message. Calm, clear, not angry, but firm. You saw her at the wedding. You saw what she did. That wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. It's always been this way. I'm not punishing her. I'm protecting myself. I hit send, then muted her number. And it hit me. Not all silence is dangerous. Some of it is just peace finally arriving. The first real test came 2 weeks later, when my cousin Melissa invited us to her baby shower. She said your mom might come, Jake told me, reading the text out loud as we cleaned up dinner. But she hopes that's okay with everyone. I stood at the sink, hands submerged in soapy water, and felt the question rise before he even asked it. You want to go? He said gently. I didn't answer right away. I could see the day in my head already. Pastel balloons, iced cupcakes, folding chairs on the lawn. My mother, arriving late, laughing too loudly, complimenting my outfit in a way that somehow felt like an insult, then pulling Melissa aside and whispering just loud enough for me to hear. You know, Ava's always been sensitive. I didn't want to play the villain in another of her performances. But I also didn't want to disappear. That's what she always counted on. Me staying silent to keep the family calm. I'm going, I said, but on my terms. Jake didn't push. He just nodded. I wore a navy dress and flats. Nothing dramatic, nothing to invite commentary. We arrived early, brought a gift from the registry, helped set up chairs. I stayed close to the kitchen, near the exit, just in case. And then she walked in. Same dramatic entrance, same dramatic timing. Halfway through the gift opening, clutching Robert's hand, cheeks flushed like the world had missed her. People clapped. Of course they did. Melissa hugged her awkwardly. I stayed seated. She saw me immediately, paused. Then, the smile. It was thin, performed, but not triumphant. For once, I saw hesitation in her eyes. She didn't approach. Not right away. I turned back to the group, pretending I hadn't seen her. For the next 20 minutes, I felt her circling, flitting from conversation to conversation, testing the waters. And then, during a lull, she came up behind me and said, too brightly, Ava, dear, I didn't expect to see you. I turned, calm. I live here. Of course you did. She blinked. Well, you look rested. I almost laughed. You mean sane? She flushed. Don't be like that. Don't do like that, I said softly. A few people looked over. She straightened up, fake smiling again. We're all family, she whispered. We shouldn't let one moment ruin everything. 1 moment? I repeated. Or a lifetime? She winced. Are we really doing this here? No, I said, standing up. We're not doing it at all. Then I stepped back, smoothed my dress, and walked into the backyard with Jake. She didn't follow. And for the rest of the afternoon, I didn't think about her once, which honestly felt like its own kind of victory. The fallout was quiet but deliberate. 2 days after the baby shower, my uncle, her older brother, emailed me. Not texted, not called, emailed. That was his thing. Formal, measured, detached. I hope whatever is happening between you and your mother can be resolved soon. She's been very upset. Family is too important to throw away. I stared at the screen, pulse flat. That line, too important to throw away, made me want to scream, because it always implied the person being hurt should be the one to forgive first, to patch it up, to keep the family from splitting down the middle. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a folder on my desktop labeled Proof I'm Not Crazy. Inside were screenshots, journal entries, saved voicemails, not to show anyone, just for me, just to remind myself that this wasn't all in my head, like the voicemail from my 26th birthday, when she cried about how forgotten she felt because I spent the weekend with friends instead of flying home. Don't you care how this affects me? She'd said. Not a single happy birthday? Or the text from the night I got my first promotion? Congrats. Maybe now you'll stop thinking you're better than everyone. There were 100 little cuts like that. Jake walked in while I was rereading them. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Just doing some archaeology. He sat beside me. You don't owe anyone an explanation, you know. I know, I said. But sometimes I need to remind myself why I stopped trying. Because guilt is sneaky. It rewrites history. It whispers. Maybe she's changed. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe you're just being cold. But facts don't lie. And the facts were this. She had weaponized love, twisted milestones into mirrors for her own reflection, and taught me, for decades, that my worth depended on how well I made her feel. And now I was teaching myself something else. That boundaries aren't cruelty, they're clarity. That self-respect doesn't require permission. That walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. That week, I mailed a letter to my mother. Not an apology, not an invitation, just a truth. We are no longer in a play. I've left the stage. Whatever you perform now, I won't be there to applaud. I don't hate you, but I no longer abandon myself to love you, and I'm done pretending that's wrong. She never replied, and I never needed her to. The morning I finally felt peace wasn't dramatic. No music swelling, no grand epiphany, just light, soft and gold, filtering through the kitchen window as I stood barefoot making coffee. It was quiet. Jake was still asleep. The world hadn't asked anything of me yet, and for once I didn't wake up dreading a text from her. I scrolled through my messages. Nothing from her. No cryptic Facebook posts. No family guilt bombs. Just a text from Melissa with a photo of her newborn's onesie and a heart emoji. I smiled. It felt real. Later that day, my father came over. He brought bagels as usual and a legal envelope. Not usual. She's trying to contest the inheritance, he said, setting it down on the table. Your aunt rewrote the will after your grandmother passed, remember? Everything was supposed to be split evenly. I blinked. She's going after the house? She's claiming emotional hardship. Says she deserves more. Of course she did. I don't want the house, I said. I want distance. He nodded. You'll get it. Your aunt's siding with you. She's seen enough. And there it was. Validation. Not from her. Never from her. But from someone who used to defend her. People were starting to see it. Later that night, I sat with Jake on the couch. Both of us quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like safety. I told him everything. The court papers. The letter I sent. The silence since. She'll come back around, he said. I nodded. Probably. And? I won't open the door. He didn't smile. He just took my hand. The thing about growing up with someone like her is, you think love has to hurt to be real. That forgiveness means starting over. That family means forever, no matter the cost. But I've learned this. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You don't have to clap for the performance that's wrecked your life. You can say, enough. You can mean it, and you can survive it. A week later, I got an email from her. No subject, no body, just a single attachment. A photo of me as a child, sitting at a piano, looking up at her with wide eyes, her hand on my shoulder. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. No response, no reaction, because the show was over, and I'd already left the theater.